Maman Brigitte, Deathloa born of Haitian and Irish suffering, and happy in bulk. I thought, given the climate of the macrosphere, we do something a little bit different for Imbolc this year, because normally we venerate Brigid on this day, just as the modern traditions go. It's a bit debatable on whether or not she was an original part of the fire festival. But the news cycle has been so heavy recently, with all the atrocities we're seeing out of ICE and the horrendous things that are coming out of still not the complete release of the Epstein files. And there's also the really significant celestial backdrop to all this. And I wrote down the historical events that go along with these transitions right now. So, right now, Pluto is in Aquarius, and that coincides with the Haitian, French, and American revolutions. And both Neptune in Aries and Uranus in Gemini, that was during the American Civil War. And Uranus in Gemini, that was World War II and the creation of NATO. So, some pretty significant celestial weather right now, to say the least. And it definitely feels mirrored down here on Earth with all of the tension and stirring of emotions and so forth. And I thought it'd be really appropriate to talk a little bit about Maman Brigitte. And she came about during the I don't know quite how to say this word, syncretization of both Haitian and Irish traditions, because both groups came to America by way of the Caribbean through the sugar plantations. And so you have the Haitians dealing with slavery, the Irish dealing with indentured servitude, and later on during the Haitian Revolution, there were numerous Irish sailors that refused to fight with the French against the Haitians, and so quite a bit of history there. And what she stands for, you know, ensuring that justice is had, even if it's not found on this mortal plane, it's found in death. And basically, there's no escaping her. So I thought we'd get a message here. And I also got the card Peacock, which is interesting. Because in the book, this talks about inner beauty and so forth, and even mentions meditating on the navel to bring into balance. So, what would that be? Solar plexus, the third chakra, yellow. But the thing that came to mind, well, and that Imbolc that means in the belly, so that synchronicity right there with meditating on the navel. But what came to mind was peacocking. The dating thing, the trying to stick out from the crowd and be bold, and on the surface it's a way to stand out, but under the surface it's speaking to a sense of insecurity. Is some of the most confident people that I've met, they show up in jeans and a white t-shirt and some sneakers, and they own the room. They don't need to peacock. And so let's get some cards and see, is this our insecurities that we're dealing with, or on a greater level, or with somebody else? Let's see. And I thought we'd do a rune reading too. That idea of something being syncretized, something being coded so that it doesn't get lost in having to be hidden because you're going to be punished for doing it. Well, let's get the first card out here. What do we need to know about Peacock? And she's a really interesting character if you get a chance to look things up about her. And if you get a chance to go to New Orleans. Can't recommend that enough if you've never been. Solio means the sun. The help of travelers and sailors, symbol of life force and feminine nature. So, drawing attention to the Irish sailors a little bit. And I had to start this video like 4 times, like just to get her name out. So that tells me there's some degree of interference, that there's something important that needs to be seen that doesn't want to be seen. As to why or by whom, I'm not quite sure yet. But so the Irish sailors, they didn't forget, like, the suffering of their brethren. You know, it wasn't exact one-to-one dealing with indentured servitude and slavery between the two groups, but they did what they could to cause, like, good trouble, you know? When the time came. So I don't think this is our insecurities that we're dealing with, because that would take a really confident person to defy orders, essentially. And maybe I mean, that defying of orders eventually will be seen, because I don't know enough about the Haitian Revolution to say, like, did they sail, like, right up to the last minute, and then we're like, nope, I'm not doing this. Honestly, that sounds like something my ancestors would do. Well, let's see, what else about peacocking? Or peacock, either way. What do we need to know? Tine? I don't quite recognize that tree. Is that mistletoe? Came out reverse. That's an Ogham. Let's see, Tine. Double check that pronunciation too. Nope, I was wrong. Chinya. Chinya. Okay. Holly tree. So the upright meaning is expertise, analysis, protection, transformation, and creativity or ability. But in reverse, attack, hardship, or aggression. Choose your battles wisely. Now can be the time to retreat and regroup. Don't forget to trust your instincts. You may need time to adapt to new situations or spiritual transformations. Alternatively, you may be avoiding a creative skill that will eventually improve you. This is a sign to learn and pursue more. I mean, that just kind of reminds me of that sailor example of when they were recruited to sail with the French. Were they A, given an option, and, you know, they must have had the wiles at that time to just lay low, like, yep, sure, you know, good soldier, soldiering on, you know, whatever, sail away. or whatever that song Cartman always sang on South Park, that he had to sing the whole thing. Uh, oh, sea shanties? Maybe that's important. I like those. But defying orders at the right moment. To what end, though? And she's got a lot of justice vibes, and actually I get a lot of Anubis vibes from her. Uh, the way the legends go, you have to have the approval of both her and her husband to be buried. So they really oversee things. She's like the commander. Rhytho, the wheel, the journey. Rune of communication, union, and material or spiritual journey. Help and advice. It is also the rune of ritual dance. Huh. So the wheel turns. Helping those who have helped you before, but it's got to be in this, like, coded way. Not entirely sure why. Maybe there's something big at stake. I don't know if it's Haitian Revolution big, but something big at stake that you have to choose your battles. Because insecure people tend to be volatile people. Like, happens a lot in relationships that the thing that's at the root of abuse is insecurity. That because the abuser is insecure, they use things like control tactics to try and, like, feel in control. Which, you don't get to control another person. But maybe you know that about whomever it is you're dealing with. Somebody insecure and therefore volatile. Tell me more about this person. Either about themselves or the nature of the interaction. And the dice roll that I got was Sagittarius, Saturn, and the 6th house. So perfectionism, order, systems. But Saturn and Virgo, that's heavy energy. Oh, and Phoenix in reverse. Transformation stalled or even failed. It's like the burning things to ash, but there's no resurrection. Is that technically what Phoenix do? They resurrect? And I think, can't there only be one Highlander? But can't there only be one in existence at a time? One Phoenix? And Peacock, those are very Phoenix-like. So Tell me more about the phoenix. I'm trying to translate that into human. Like, how would that manifest as a person? This is someone who maybe peacocking isn't working anymore. Like, that used to be a viable strategy for them, for their victory. But you realized you can just defy orders. Because that visual show of the tail and everything, it's very big, and they're very screechy creatures. And I feel like they kind of eat everything. Like raccoons. Like, for all the grace and the beauty and whatnot, they're kind of trash parrots. But it's like whomever you're dealing with has relied on peacocking for so long, they haven't developed any sort of other skill, because, like, what would have the French commanders have done? Yell at them from another ship? Like, cool. And then, what, send them back to the plantation? Doesn't seem like they're really being given a choice in either direction. So, like, why comply? If either option is indentured servitude, why comply? Like, if you want some, like, a win-win situation, one of those options needs to be a win. Oh, just kind of fell right out of my hand. Fehu. Livestock and food. Power and wealth must flow to be beneficial, but with caution. This rune is a symbol of vital flow and movement and of change. And it's in reverse. This is an undesirable change. You realizing that you can be defiant, and it's kind of like, well, what can you do to me that you haven't already done? Nothing? Resounding silence? And, I don't know. Could the Irish have just absconded with the ship? What are they gonna do? Destroy their own ship? I don't know. Seems like it would be kind of distracting. You know, you're trying to fight a battle or something, and you got to worry about your opposition on one side, and then now your internal opposition on the other. So what else about Phoenix? It's a little quiet now, too. Yep. Menas. Man and interdependence. This rune is the rune of humanity, family, and departure. It symbolizes the link between men and gods. Oh. It's like someone lost their connection to the higher power. Like, whatever their higher power is. Or they've had allegiance to, like, a false higher power, like money. Because money's not going to go with you to the grave. The only thing that's going with you is you. And that, it's like realizing they were on the wrong side the whole time. But it's too late. They're getting burnt up. It's like, what was that movie? Charlize Theron? Uh, The Immortals. They can only resurrect so many times. It was a good movie. What's this? I was taking that. This one. Own. Let's see if I'm pronouncing any of these right. And it came out reverse. Kind of looks like wheat a little bit. On. Ash tree. But this one says gorse. Is that another name for ash? I don't know. But in reverse, it means complication, danger, unhealthy behaviors. You might be putting yourself in danger by taking too many risks. Slow down and do your best to find the right way for yourself. That's like what can't happen because the connection to the divine has been lost or was never there. For whomever this peacock individual is. Like they got too big for their britches and didn't realize that this interdependence here, like they were interdependent on their sailor. And, you know, if you whip your sailor at the sugar plantation and then you put him on a boat and then, you know, go attack the people that have been keeping you sane this whole time while we make you do things. Like just the audacity to expect compliance. It's like every empire eventually falls because there's somebody that just gets too big for their britches. They think power is absolute, and it's not. It can always be taken away. So, what's going on with you, collective? So I feel like we've been talking about them a lot, but what about you? Because I feel like this person, this peacock individual, not being looked upon highly by Maman Brigitte or anyone in your respective pantheon. And as far as I know, voodoo is all closed practices. Like you have to be invited by another practitioner. So if it's not your pantheon, if you're not also of the syncretized pantheon, not Irish, and you haven't been invited, just be respectful, you know, when you're learning about things. Owl. Not learning about things? Because it came out in reverse. That's usually the wise academic. But not learning. Not learning about what? And there's also, this could be something becoming seen. Because owls, they fly silently. So this could be that defiance becoming seen as well. Unwillingness to obey, to comply. What about the owl? See if I can zone in a little bit on what that means in reverse. So not learning something, something becoming seen or heard. And it's a barn owl, and that always reminds me of the court of owls, like Batman. That was a really dark comic. I really like that one though. He really confronts his shadow in that. Some really heavy stuff. And that's like the show Gotham was getting into those plot points. What about the owl? And I just feel like there's a lot of interference in the air with how many times I had to start the video and how quiet the cards seem to get when I'm trying to start a new position. Let's give them a shuffle. Is this not wanting you to learn something? Is that it? Maybe that's still not the right question. Let's try this. Get another to go with the owl. See if I can get more rooted in that way. What about the owl? Oh, and they're all birds. I keep getting almost flips. Oh, there we go. Okay, there's the not bird. And cobra in reverse. I'm pretty sure this is a teacher card. I have to double check. I mean, you know, a cobra, that'll learn you. Get too close. Won't make that mistake twice. It is the teacher. Pausing, waiting, the inner teacher. The cobra represents a teacher or spiritual guardian. The cobra hovers and watches, ever present, ever protecting, ever loving. The essence of the cobra is found deep within us in the form of the inner teacher, and it manifests externally in those special guides who've led us along our path. What would it feel like to be a student again? What are you ready to learn? Remember the old saying, when the student is ready, the teacher appears. But the owl was also, like, not wanting you to learn something. So really not wanting you. Like, it's just doubling up on that meaning. But at least narrowed in, though. That's good. So what is it we are not wanting to learn? Or someone doesn't want us to learn? Ifin. Looks happy. But again, in reverse. Almost all reversals, actually. And those look like a little big to be grapes, but we'll see. pine or gooseberry. Oh, this doesn't have a reversed meaning. Okay. Enjoying daily life, vision, divination, being free from feelings of guilt and shame. Ifin represents our ability to appreciate pleasant aspects of life and discover our insights. Someone doesn't want you to learn that you can enjoy daily life? It does mention being free from feelings of guilt and shame. So somebody doesn't want you to learn that you don't have to feel guilty about defying, like, unethical orders. Because colonization is unethical. Just, I cannot imagine any kind of argument, like a logical argument for that. Like, no, it's fine. No, actually it's not. Keep giving people smallpox and stuff. It's not fine. But so, this person doesn't want... They don't want you to learn that you can defy orders and not feel guilty about it. And also put that in whatever context. Like, I don't know if you're actually defying orders, you know, because that's something that has been coming up. You know, there are GI hotlines and such to talk to them about your rights, specifically in reference to defying orders. And I can't imagine that hasn't come up in all the various things that we're seeing. Because it's kind of like, you know, I lived through all the Islamophobia propaganda and whatnot of 9/11, but we didn't have social media at that time, or at least it wasn't what it is today. And things seem to spread a lot faster now. Like, it was all over social media, like clips of the various unalivings that we've seen recently at the hands of ICE. All those clips of those spread like wildfire before we were lied to by officials. Like, they walked up to the podium and lied, even though these clips had already been circulating. That's a bad strategy. Like, there's got to be an air of control, trustworthiness, power, things like that for propaganda to work. And they're losing that hold, all thanks to social media. And now I have noticed the changes to the TikTok algorithm since that's gone stateside. I've been seeing other much bigger content creators of like how political commentary on their TikToks, the numbers on that as opposed to the other platforms, meanwhile comparing that to the audience size, and things just don't look right. I am absolutely not in support of censorship. And there's so much brewing, I think, within people right now. All that unrest. And there's all that, the celestial backdrop, too. There's just so much within going on that it feels like learning that you can be defiant, maybe not without consequence, but with minimal consequence. Or like, what are you going to do to me that you haven't done before? And yeah, we've seen some pretty serious escalation tactics, like the arresting of, what's his name? Don Lemon and the 3 other journalists, who all just so happen to be black. Didn't arrest anybody else. Under like conspiracy charges or something, also known as the First Amendment. It's not what journalism is. It's just telling the truth. At least that's the idea. But so, why doesn't this peacock person want us to learn this? Cole? Can't remember which tree that is. But this almost feels like it could be on the macro level too. Because that does kind of seem to be the worst nightmare, you know. But it's the example that's being set for us because, I mean, if the DOJ, if they don't have to abide by the law, where does that leave the rest of us? I don't know. But this is the hazel tree. And in reverse, it's ignorance, insensitivity, and obstacles. You lack education, so focus on growth and improvement. If life has let you down recently, now is a good time to change your perspective and find simple, mundane joys. I don't like the way this is making me feel. This feels like a, hey, look over here. Like, don't look over there, look over here. It's like when employers are like, well, we don't offer a competitive salary, but foosball table. You know? And there was, I can't remember which one of these mentioned it, but it was like returning to a creative skill that might help you improve later. Like it's something that you put down. It's almost like gaslight yourself into submission. Like, pizza party, yay, you don't need raises. Like, ignore that the CEO just got like a winter home and you can't even afford a condo. You know? Like all those laws that had to be put in place to protect workers, discussing their salary. Like, the only people that benefit from you not discussing your salary is your employer. That's it. I cannot think of a single, like, other than, like, social mores, you know, I don't like talking about my finances with other people and stuff like that. Besides that, there's really no functional benefit to employees not discussing salaries with each other. And we've got Yara, the harvest, justice, growth, fertility, rebirth. This rune announces the end of a cycle and difficulties, and the beginning of a positive period. And it's the only upright one, which I don't think this has a reverse meaning. But it came out in the upright, and it's the only one in this position. So there's some sort of justice about you realizing you can be defiant. And that you don't have to go along with this, like, well, we're going to expect above and beyond out of you, but we're going to do the bare minimum, and if you don't like it, you can go somewhere else. Something like that. Because as the economy worsens, like if you start to really look at things in perspective, at least here in the States, American workers take less time off than medieval serfs. And granted, I have not validated that, but I'm not surprised, actually, the way that math is mathing. And the difference in wealth between like the uppers and the lowers and whatnot is worse than all other revolutionary periods. Even not all of them, but of like the golden eras of yesteryears, like it was a much sooner starting point where people really started to revolt and like, this is not right. We can't live off of cake. And all that, the celestial weather now is in the right place for that revolutionary signature. So the harvest and justice. Where's this headed? Because I feel like we're just at the beginning. Because, you know, if you think of like the life, death, and rebirth cycle, she would be the death stage of that. So then the rebirth is next, the renaissance, you know? So where's this headed? And this feels like just the way this is coming out with examples and such. This could be micro or macro, whatever you're dealing with, but just that mirroring between the celestial weather and down here on Earth. Where is this headed? What do we need to know? Mouse. In reverse. So I'm getting the opposite of like mousy, meek. So more out in the open. Because a mouse would normally hide from an owl and a cobra. But it's like just beginning to become emboldened. Just in the decisions and the choices that you've made. Let's see. What do we need to know about the mouse? I mean, what would you do if you had that click, that realization that, like, whomever you're dealing with, the peacock person, what if they are all bark and no bite? How would you act? How would you carry on? You know, if you whip your slaves long enough, they're going to become numb to it. Maybe not physically, but psychologically, they're going to dissociate and fight back eventually. They're going to get fed up. And take that for what you will, you know, either from a historical point of view or the modern serf And this, I think, is witch hazel healing. The name looks like that. And I don't think that has a reverse meaning, actually. Let's see. No, no reverse meaning. Imbolc. But witch hazel, I mean, if you've ever, use it as like a toner or something like that, need to cleanse or purify disease or negative energy. Imbolc represents our ability to protect and improve our physical and mental health. I mean, the relief that figuring out, that boot that's on your neck, like, oh, you can just twist the ankle, comes right off. It's amazing. It's amazing how that works. So you're realizing that even though you might feel like that meek little mouse, and maybe you are, but that doesn't mean you can't create big change from where you are. Secret of Nim, if you've ever watched that. I think, like, she shivered in her boots throughout so much of that movie. But, what was her name? Mrs. Brim? Something like that. She was so brave and she was so small. So it's not about, how big and bold you seem. It's about the moves you make. And think about how much a little mouse can accomplish, so unassuming, so incognito. It's really not about the fanfare. It's about getting the job done, This came out on its side. Urus. The Aurochs? I don't know what that word is. The mother. Principle of vital energy. Procreation, purification, and transformation. So this is in progress. So transforming into that defiant punk rock mouse. Just imagining like a little mohawk all the way down. But you're in that process, realizing that there's a lot more you can do than meets the eye. And that's what brings in justice. Because imagine being like the French commander. How furious they must have been. Because somebody had to have, like, been deceptive and played it cool right until the last moment. And then just refused to sail on the Haitian ships. Or wherever they were. Hold up. And I think that's also the message that is trying to be sent to us about our own individual voices in this political climate. That speaking up doesn't make a difference. And think of how much power that holds. If they can convince you, the powers that be, whatever situation you happen to be in, if they can convince you that your voice holds no power to the point where you don't even try to speak at all, there's nothing to challenge them. Just right out the gate, they don't have anything to keep them occupied, to derail them from whatever nefarious supervillain goings-ons that is happening to keep these files hidden. Like, think of the type of person you gotta be to hide these files. There is absolutely nothing I can think of in my mind that would justify not bringing anybody in those files to justice. And I don't know. It really concerns me. Like how many people are in really concerning pockets, you know? And Maman Brigitte, seeing that justice is found even in death, if it's not found in life, like, think of the unaliving in a cell, all of the consequences he got out of because that occurred. And granted, I'm not convinced that was an unaliving of his own accord. Um, but if not, then it's just covering up other people's crimes by taking him out. Like, there's more and more injustice that gets to go on. There's a lot of bad stuff going on in the States. I know I've been dealing with the dissociative fog for a while lately. Just trying to focus on grounding and such. And take your sick days when you're able. Because if you don't schedule system maintenance, your body will schedule system maintenance for you. But what else about this transformation? But of course, the powers that be would not want you to discover the power of your own voice, because that threatens their power. And they're peacocking. And peacocking is a very flimsy form of power. It's kind of like fear-based respect. What happens when I don't fear you anymore? Where does my respect for not even your position, but you go? Because positional authority, that's just a chair. That's why I don't do hierarchies. There we go. We've got Elhaz and Lagus. So Elhaz, protection. This is the elk. Symbol of the dangers of the outside world for the spiritual. Wait, hang on. For the spiritual life and research. Often engraved on weapons as a token of protection and victory. Seems a little run on there. But Lagus is water and intuition, like a reed. Symbol of life, birth, but also of difficulties, danger, purity, unconsciousness, and dreams. So pay attention to your dreams. I mean, I think you should always pay attention to those, but maybe there's some extra emphasis, and especially today being a full moon. It's a full moon in Leo. They're both in reverse. But danger subsiding? Danger is subsiding because you're realizing the power of you. I don't think you're out of the woods yet, though. This is like the mouse is about to make a break for it, you know, through the legs of the house cat. And think of all the extreme danger the main character in Secret of Nim, all that she faced when she got like trapped up in that cage that was hanging from the ceiling, and she had to escape from that, and it was a race against time while the sleeping medicine for the cat was wearing off. So maybe you're about to make a break for it. To make your move. Get one more. Where's this little mouse headed? After this transformation. Where's this transformation leading? Oh, shark. Didn't mean to do that. Didn't mean to flip that over. But it's in reverse. As all these other ones are too. I've always had great respect for sharks. But I feel like this is the metaphor for you seeing how unnecessary it is to be a shark. You know, like say this is a business sort of deal. Just seeing that these normal office politics that have become standard fare are tired and played out, and they don't have place in the modern world. They don't support a modern workforce. And especially given how much like the gap between productivity tools and wage, it just gets wider and wider and wider, and it's growing at an exponential rate, especially with how AI has made its way into various industries, with, I think, insufficient testing myself. But just seeing that this business as usual, the way things have been done, like if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always got. And so far that's been patriarchy and abuse of employees. And like, do we want to change or do we want to remain the same? That's the question we have to ask ourselves. Because I think what's different this time is the presence of social media and things that were previously out of reach for everyone because they were like paywalled behind MBAs and organizational psych degrees and poli-sci degrees and whatever. Now, if used properly, we can get these really informative and insightful summations from brilliant creators. And they're using their institutional knowledge and experience, or even just special interest in a topic to break down really complicated, big picture stuff into little like 3-minute digestible things. Of course, you can't cover an entire topic in 3 minutes, but it can get you interested enough, you know, at the beginning of a rabbit hole or something, to go do your own research. And not with Chat GPT, preferably. Just my 2 cents. Prospect. I don't know if you've seen that. It's really cool. Like indie sci-fi movie. One of my favorites of my husband. If you get a chance to watch it, though, it's really interesting. I like that it's got that, like, practical effect feel. I think some of it was CGI. And I'm always astounded at, like, independent movies the budget for those. Like, even, like, B horror, how expensive those are to produce. It always blows my mind. But really good movie. So, sci fi is such a good metaphor for these big things going on in the world. I think the Matrix is kind of the classic example. Uh, but there's a lot to be seen in smaller, lesser known things. So, overall, I hope this helps. I hope this resonates, and if it doesn't, I hope the next one does. Thank you so much.